What's good, family? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, the host of Black and Published podcast and the author of the novel The Seven Daughters of Dupree. This historical fiction novel is about the secrets kept between mothers and daughters over the course of 7 generations and is told backwards in time from 1995 to 1860. I have an excerpt from the novel for you today. The audiobook is narrated by Bonnie Turpin, and this scene you're about to listen to is from chapter 15 and features the character Nadia, who was writing a letter detailing her fears about her pregnancy.
How do you carry a child in fear? Step 1. It starts with him not being here. Step 2. Forget the fairy tales. Step 3. Remember the lies. I'm going to leave my wife. I don't want to live my life without you. Step 4. Replay the reaction when you told him the news. What the hell you want me to do? You know I already got a ball and 3 chains. Step 5. Sing to yourself. Is my living in vain? Step 6. Pray. Step 7. Break the news to Mama. Step 8. Go to church with her. Step 9. Be mortified by her testimony filled with your shame. Step 10. Explore all options. Keep it, adoption, abortion. Step 11. Make a decision. Step 12. Doubt decision. Step 13. Repeat steps 10, 11, and 12 until you're 3 months out from your due date. Step 14. Realize it's too late. Step 15. Try to tell him again. Step 16. Find out he's moved. Step 17. Make a plan. Step 18. Doubt the plan. Step 19. Cry uncontrollably, inconsolably, until you're out of tears. Step 20. Remember step 1. He's not here.
I hope you enjoyed that scene from The Seven Daughters of Dupree, narrated by Bonnie Turpin. The novel is available everywhere books are sold and in whatever format you prefer: hardcover, ebook, audiobook, and large print. So, if you can, please consider getting a copy of The Seven Daughters of Dupree today. Now, let's get to the episode.
In this attention economy, because our brains are really conditioned to get the entertainment, get the hit, scroll to the next reel, fast forward, just find out what happened, just get to the plot twist, just get to the end. And there is an extent to which that impulse, I think, dehumanizes.
What's good? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, and this is Black and Published on the Mahogany Books Podcast Network, bringing you the journeys of writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. Today's guest is Helena Haywoode Henry, author of the YA novel Last Chance Live. It's a book that looks at the price of eternity through an 18-year-old girl on death row who decides to try to win her freedom on a reality show.
The show is the lens, the show is not the point. And I would think of the show as like the frame of the mirror that the book is. What the iterations were about was, what does that glass reflect inside the mirror?
The premise for Helena's novel stems from her background as a lawyer, a career she chose because she didn't think writing was realistic. What made her return to the page to try and professionalize what had only been a hobby? Plus, the reason why Helena believes reimagining the current state of capital punishment is one small way of reimagining the current state of America. And why she believes we are all Eternity Price, her main character, and why we all do our worst to execute one another every day. That and more is next, when Black and Published continues. All right. Helena, when did you know that you were a writer?
I knew I was a writer probably at age 6. I would sit in my room surrounded by a mountain of Barbie dolls and did not want a single person to come play with me ever, not one time. I would sit there for hours, didn't want to leave, wanted to tell my own stories my own way, did not want anyone else to come in and adjust the plot or the character arcs I had set. And Barbie's stories always had to be deeply complicated. It was like Barbie is an immigrant family of 9 coming to America. But yeah, I have been telling stories basically all of my life.
So then, how did you become a lawyer?
I went to law school straight after college. I had determined incorrectly that writing would probably not be a viable long-term career option. I thought it was just something that would be a hobby. So I went to law school, graduated, worked, had my children, and at that time I stopped working and started writing for real and thought, let me see. Well, I've got this newborn on a rocking chair if I can write a book. And I shared the pitch with a friend, asked them if it was a good idea. That friend said no, but I did it anyway. And here we are.
Wait, the pitch you shared with a friend was Last Chance Live?
It was Last Chance Live.
And they
This
said
is like
no?
7 years ago. This is a lawyer friend. Lawyers are deeply boring people, and all they see is risk. So I'm glad I didn't listen, but we are still very good friends.
I'm so glad that you didn't listen to them either. And next time, get you more creative friends who
Right.
hear a good pitch because I'm like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. So I see you are among the crazy of us women who like write books while we have newborns at home because I've done it twice now, but I don't recommend it. You made it happen. Where did this idea come from?
The idea came from a few places. So, one was the American Bar Association released a position paper 7 years ago when I started writing this book about how we apply the death penalty to people ages 18 and up, in spite of emerging neuroscience that shows that the human brain does not stop developing until 25. So, we are sentencing people to death for crimes that they committed when their brains were functionally the brain of a teenager. They might have been legal adults at the time, but they were not biological adults. And the second place was a young girl that I worked with during my time at the University of Pennsylvania. I volunteered in a Head Start classroom, and there was a little girl who was an absolute star. She was incredible. She belonged on TV. And I was really struck by how she was growing up 2 blocks away from Penn, from this very storied and privileged institution. But the likelihood that she was ever going to be able to access those privileges and resources was very low. And the third place was thinking of the main character of Last Chance Live, Eternity Price, as an everyman character in the spirit of a lot of traditional everyman stories that we read, thinking of who is an archetype in our type of literature and who is a stereotype. Typically, we see someone like Eternity Price positioned as a stereotype, a young, overweight, dark skinned girl who's from an underprivileged community. And we do not see her positioned as an archetype, a stand in for all of humankind who embodies these universal questions, existential questions, and circumstances. And so I really wanted to challenge us to think of people like Eternity as everyman characters, as archetypes who can be a stand in for all of us, because that's how we lessen the gap that we perceive between people like us and people like Eternity.
So then, from that spark, how long did it take you to write this book?
Well, I began 7 years ago. It took a few years to finish the first draft. And by the time I started querying, the rest of it moved a little bit quicker. But it took a while. The query process was quick. I was really fortunate to get my incredible agents that I'm just so grateful for. We tooled around with it for a couple of months and then went out in submission. And I was fortunate to connect with my editor quickly. And then it went through the machinery of publishing. But that initial draft on my own was years, probably about 4 to 5 years.
Was it one consecutive draft that just took you 4 to 5 years, or were there multiple drafts in that time?
Multiple drafts, multiple drafts. Yeah, it was an iterative process. I am definitely an iterative writer. I saw another author, I think it was Veronica Roth, note how we think of writers as like pantsers or plotters, and I definitely fall in one end of that spectrum, but there's also sculptors and I think she said iterators. And sculptors carefully craft each word as they're going, and iterators dump their words and then revise and revise and refine and refine. I'm probably somewhere a little bit in between the two, but for me, this was definitely an iterative process. And I find thinking about it in an iterative way takes some of the pressure off of each draft.
What were you trying to solve in each iteration?
I think the iterations were about deepening the characters and making sure this book was about a show, but not about a show. Sorry to disappoint those of us who just want to sit with our popcorn. But the show is the lens. The show is not the point. And I would think of the show as like the frame of the mirror that the book is. What the iterations were about was, what does that glass reflect inside the
Mm,
mirror?
because the book is a reflection of the culture that we live in. I don't like what the mirror is showing me as the reader. I'm going to take my personal feelings out of it for now. And so then, as you say, your query process went really quickly, your submission process went really quickly as well. What did like your editors say, or even on your submission calls with editors, what did they say about this premise of this book that you have written? Because I'm just like, I ain't never read no shit like this before. Like
Yeah.
it's like taking, it reminded me a lot of Sapphire's Push with the protagonist Precious that
Yes.
everyone knows,
Yes.
but then
Yes.
bringing Precious out of 1980s New York and into very much the attention economy of the 2020 now.
Yes. Yeah. The editors were really encouraging and supportive. And my editor in particular that I work with, Stacey Barney, has just been such a champion for me and for this book. She gets eternity. She believes in the story and believes in me. And it's just been a real privilege to work with her. And I also really like her as a person in person. So we always have a good time when we get to chat.
What
Mm.
kind of notes did you get from your editor on Last Chance Live to make your story the best it could be, but still all of your own?
I got notes that readers should be very grateful for, and they included things like, Helena, I do not think we need a 4-paragraph arbitration clause in chapter 2 that it explains, like, if eternity and the show are in some legal conflict with each other, here's the dispute process by which that will be resolved. So she was like, I think we can cut this. Or she'd be like, this is your 5th mention of attorney-client privilege or whatnot. So she took things that were probably interesting to me and 3 other people and
The lawyers of the group.
gently coax them out of the text so that the readers could just have a good time. She also did a tremendous job really helping get that depth of character and making sure that each character was fully developed and their experience and their viewpoints were reflected on the page, which was no small task.
Less law, more people. But this
Yeah.
is very much a book critiquing the criminal legal system and the way that those who become impacted by it are actually victims of it. Was that
Mm.
always your point?
I would say this book was written to not have a point as much as to have a lot of questions for which I'd like readers to come to their own conclusions. And I say
Mhm.
that because, to the extent there is a point, the point is there's a lot of brokenness in the world. There's a lot of damage and decay that is just deeply seeped into us and our soil and our systems. I wrote this to leave it to readers to determine what the primary evil or injustice is in the book.
Mm.
Because notably, for the most part, all of the people impacted by this legal system, they all did the thing, right? We're not talking about the Innocence Project
Well,
here.
Jimena said she didn't do it.
And Meta says she didn't do it, but they were not talking about young people who were sort of minding their own business and tripped on a banana peel and ended up here, right? And there's also a number of young people in very challenging circumstances who don't make choices that get them to death row, right? There's also a whole host of reasons, systemic and cultural and economic and societal, that explain how they did get there, right? So I really did leave it to readers to determine, is that primary injustice, is it something in our hearts? Is it in the inmates who committed their crimes? Is the primary injustice in the system, the legal system? Is the primary injustice in the culture around these people, the culture that minds them for entertainment, the culture that does not recognize the humanity that they share with us being those of a different experience or different demographic? And I think it's up to readers to determine where they think that primary injustice is. Or is it something else that I didn't even mention? Is it something outside of all 3 of those?
So I get that you wrote the book to not have a specific point of perspective that you are imparting, but you as the author had a point in writing it. What was it? Was it just that I've always loved storytelling and I have this crazy ass idea and let's find out?
My point is I want to encourage us to contemplate who we are, what are we doing, and where are we going? And Eternity Price is an everyman character because she embodies all three of those questions. As a death row inmate, she's sitting in a unique position where she's asking both the traditional YA question, which is where am I going, and the traditional adult fiction question, how did I get here? She's asking them both, but she's asking it in an existential way because she's really trying to figure out where she's going. And I think that it is very easy today for us to sort of sleepwalk through existence in this nation, to go through the motions and participate in our communities the way we do, to awake with outrage on a particular post and then to go back to sleep. But there's some big questions out there for us as individuals. There's some big questions for us as an American society. And the fabric, I think we all can sense that the fabric that has traditionally held something together in this nation and in us internally is fraying. I think a lot of people feel frayed on the inside. They see a fraying in their country. And I wanted to offer a text that helps us to process that on both of those levels, an individual level and a societal level.
Not you dragging us by our edges today on this podcast. Jesus. It bothered me from the beginning, and then it really bothered me at the end. Why the name Eternity Price?
She is contemplating, quite literally, the price of her eternity. That's that question of where am I going? What's happening?
And literally in dollars and cents, yes.
Literally in dollars and cents. And one of the things that the executive producer of Last Chance Live explains, Evan Fletcher, is how forgiveness really works. And he explains that the price of eternity is a forgiveness model, and that forgiveness has cost. And the example he uses is a car crash, that if I hit your car with mine and I cause $10,000 worth of damage, your choices are you pay or I pay. But there's no magic wand that just makes the harm go away. Even if I say I'm sorry, even if you say I forgive you. If you say I forgive you, it sounds like you're going to pay and I'm free to go. And that payment, that forgiveness is requiring you to swallow a very literal cost. The whole format of Last Chance Live is structured to have the victor win $20 million because in the real world, Iowa State University researchers concluded that the cost of a crime like murder is $20 million. That's the cost of victims, society, the legal system, all of the systems involved in that harm. And so for us to contemplate the price of eternity, the cost of what we've done, and then to pivot to figuring out what does repair and renewal look like? How do we make things new? Forgiveness is integral to that question, and there's no way around it. It's really a question of cost. Are we accounting the cost of what we've done as individuals and the harm we've caused as a society? One of the sticking points that we are experiencing culturally, particularly in the Black community, or I should say impacting the Black community, is this nation is struggling to assign a cost to the harm done to people of color in this country historically. And they are struggling to identify how and whether to pay that cost, to rectify it. What should it look like? We have some people who don't believe the cost should be paid for at all. They believe there was a magic wand that erased the sins of slavery and segregation and post-Reconstruction era, and we should just move on, which is really actually asking people to just swallow the pain, right? There's others who say, no, there is a cost. There is real world harm that has been done in this nation and it has to be rectified. And that's just one example. There's many ways you can apply this model, but her name is Eternity Price because these are the questions I really hope to bring to the forefront as our ecosystem seeks to distract us with a lot of other noise that is perhaps not quite as existential.
All right. So then can you go ahead and read from Last Chance Live and introduce me and the audience to Eternity Price?
Sure.
Last Chance Live by Helena Haywoode Henry is a YA novel set in the near future where young adults on death row have an opportunity to compete for their freedom on a reality show. The catch? There can only be one winner, and everyone else who was voted off the show forfeits the appeals process and is executed within 7 days. Knowing these rules, 18-year-old Eternity Price goes on the show anyway and makes friends for the first time in her life, who all need each other to die so they can live. Here's Helena.
I will read from a section where Eternity has just made it on the show, and she is meeting her fellow contestants for the first time. She's met the first 5 contestants that are on the show, and now a second group is about to come in. The first 5 sit on the couch as the living room slowly fills with contestants. A pretty black girl with high cheekbones, her hair in 2 braids, joins us on the couch. Quiet, pressing out the creases in her slinky silver dress. A white boy with long dark hair gives a head nod and not much else. Imena's eyes follow him as I follow hers. He is a whole ass snack, she says, like she's not standing right there. Maybe, if you're into pirates. He looks like a pirate. Polished, tan skin, long brown waves that fall to his shoulders. Billowy white shirt that's open at the top. Thick lashes that kind of look like he's wearing makeup. Maybe he is. Maybe the show did it. Imena stares at him until the next boy walks in. Black, thin, hair lined in careful waves, a smile of pretty teeth. When he gets closer, I see a tattoo on his neck that's covered up with foundation. Plot twist. Next guy is an Asian dude wearing rollerblades. Didn't know Asians went to prison. Doesn't look at any of us. Doesn't look like he really knows how to rollerblade. He slow crashes into the couch and sits down. I count the group. We're at 9. 1 person left. Plot twist for real. A white girl. A white girl? A blonde white girl? Long butter blonde hair done in some Game of Thrones braid. Her dress is better than anyone else's. Maybe because it fits her better. Maybe because they gave her first pick. She doesn't look felony white. Doesn't look trailer white. She's the kind of white that goes on the side of a shopping bag. The kind of white that has a boy bandish boyfriend of 15 and drinks classic Coke out of bottles on a pier at a beach. She's real American white. Got all her teeth. Good ones, too. Who invited Barbie? Imena mutters. The pretty black girl laughs soft. I can't laugh like the black girl did. I'm surprised she can. I already know what's going to happen. There's no way I win. Maybe I could beat Ramon and Darnell, or those white guys, Lobster Jake and the pirate, Imena's loudmouth and whoever else. But there's no way this country is voting for fat and black me over the girl who just walked into this room. So now I know. I've got a few days to live.
Thank you. I read that, and then I went to the copy on the jacket to see if you were going to set me up for heartbreak or if, the fat black girl was going to win. Because, I'm not okay when I'm reading the book to assure me that I'm going to be okay when the book is over. I am not okay, Helena. I am not okay. This book, as you said, you're using the concept of a reality television show that these death row contestants are on as the frame to reflect back. And as I said to you earlier, through that lens, I don't like what's looking back at me because I see how I consume media, how I now consume books, and not necessarily how I think about the criminal legal system, but how notions about the criminal legal system are easily dismissed. And I'm not sure what to do with the information or even the recognition, because it's like these have become ingrained habits, much like reality television.
Yeah.
Was that also part of your point in using that frame of reference to explore these very deep issues?
Yeah. And I would say, to the extent we don't like the reflection that we see, that's an invitation and it's an opportunity because that is changeable. The full story, I think, of this book, of Last Chance Live, begins really after the last page of it, because the locus point and the reflection of hope and of renewal and repair is in us. And we have agency. If we don't like what we see, we can do something about it. Just like our real reflections, right? Millions of people get up every day and they get out of bed and they don't like what they see, and then they take action. They either let me fix my hair, let me do something about my edges, let me, let me go to the gym, let me this, They don't just roll out of bed and say, this is what I mean, well, maybe some of us do, but usually don't roll out of bed and say, this is what I am. I don't like it, but onto the day, onto the street,
Beyonce woke
It's
up
the
like
same
this. I
thing.
did not.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Exactly. The rest of us, mere mortals, had to do some work. So it's an invitation, and different people might respond to that reflection in different ways. One young reader may read it and say, you know what? I see my reflection, or I see our culture's reflection, our nation's reflection. I don't like what I see, but I know eternity. Eternity's at my school. I see eternity in sixth period. Nobody talks to her, and people think she smells. I'm just going to go be friends with her, right? Someone else may say, I see a reflection. I see an opportunity for me to participate in this. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to be a public defender to lessen the burden that public defenders in this country have in terms of caseload. And maybe the next time an attorney comes through the system, they just have a lawyer who is similarly well intentioned as the lawyer she had, but is maybe more available. Another person might say, I see the reflection. I think the problem is the young Black kids, and they make terrible choices. This is how they act and whatnot. And hopefully, maybe that person says, well, I'm going to go be a mentor. If I think this is a story about personal responsibility, and I think this is people need to make different choices, let me go help equip a younger person to make different choices. Let me walk alongside them. Let me give them that encouragement and support. There's different ways that people can respond to the reflection. And my hope is that people identify, what is your individual purpose? What is your talent? What are you passionate about? And that intersection point is probably something that can illuminate for you what to do next.
What reality show was in your mind when you were crafting Last Chance Live?
So it has been a minute since I have watched any reality TV at all, but the mansion concept was certainly inspired by The Bachelor. And I read a lot of post-Bachelor memoirs that were very helpful in getting the details of how reality TV works on the other side of it, behind the screen. American Idol voting structure. All of my references are very like early 2000s, because that's the age where I watched television at all, really. But I think I watched a little bit of Survivor when I started drafting this, and a couple episodes. So just sort of getting an amalgamation of different models for different shows.
You have included every stereotype that has ever been on a reality show in these 10 contestants, including eternity. You have the jock, you have the pretty Black girl, and then, the really buff Black guy who could be a player. There's an Asian kid, there's a Hispanic kid, there are overweight contestants. They're the ones who say, I didn't do it, and are like sticking to it. And then there are those who like have taken the rap for someone else because, as the saying goes, whoever speaks first gets the deal or gets the best deal. You have that in there. And so it's just very hard to read, but because it's structured as a reality TV show, you're trying to read those parts because they're fun.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be fun. Like you're trying to get to when America votes, like you're building the suspense. Like if you're watching American Idol to find out who America voted for, who's going to the next round. Is there an ice storm somewhere that knocks people out from voting like it was in season 3 when Jennifer Hudson lost to Fantasia? It's like you're reading the book like that, and then you give the backstory in other chapters, which is like what, Helena?
Which is like the commercial break. Yeah. Yeah.
And as a reader, I'm trying to speed through the commercial breaks like I have my DVR or old school TiVo or whatever. And you can't,
not TiVo.
since we're using like old references,
Right.
but I can't speed through because I'm reading a book.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a challenge, I think, in this attention economy, because our brains are really conditioned to get the entertainment, get the hit, scroll to the next reel, fast forward, just find out what happened, just get to the plot twist, just get to the end. And there is an extent to which that impulse, I think, dehumanizes the people that are part of the content we're consuming, because people are not sound bites, and they're not reels, and they're not clips. They are deeply complicated, years long stories of experiences and dynamics and systems and choices that have formed them. And so when we get in the habit of just sort of skipping through that and getting to the fun part, we flatten the people around us. And I think it impacts the ways that we can really connect with them.
And so thinking about how we have made everything into entertainment, I immediately thought of, when you said that, my former career as a television news producer. I remember I used to write in my cover letter that I was a producer who was didactic, that I wanted my shows to both inform and entertain. because I realized that television news is a business of capitalism. And so when you win your show or your day part or your time slot, you can then charge more for advertising, and that keeps the lights on in the station or whatever. And then I think about also, especially at the local level, which is where I work, the old adage is if it bleeds, it leads. So anything that's crime is going at the top. And the only thing that's going to top crime is a hurricane or like a blizzard or like something crazy, right? It may be traffic if it's 5 o'clock. But for the most part, the crime is going at the top, and the crazier the story, the better. Like I remember doing stories about young kids who were sentenced to life and in lieu of death, right? And I feel like the turning our informative spaces into zones of entertainment started with television news and has only extrapolated into other areas where now we expect everything to be entertainment, not just the news, but also anything that we go to that is a break from, I guess, work and widget making. And so even though your frame for your novel is a reality show, it's still giving the infotainment value through the text, because you are really breaking down pieces and parts of the law and true studies about the cost of a crime or the price of housing someone who is living on death row and all of that through this book. Do you see it that way, or am I out on a limb?
You are not out on a limb at all. I would say, though, there was a pretty significant leap between the television model and what we have today on our devices, our personal devices of social media. And though the book, Last Chance Live, is written in the form of that old television show model, in reality, it's really experienced on social media. And in the book, it's experienced through reels and the think pieces and the threads and the posts and whatnot. And I think that the challenge and part of why we are where we are with our entertainment seeking, entertainment saturated culture is television was, generally speaking, a communal activity. You would sit next to other people who were real flesh and blood, and you would watch the screen together at the same time. And so the entertainment value that it had was not just individual, there was some sort of bonding mechanism that it created. This modern device and social media is just so different from that. It is disembodied. It's asynchronous. You're not sitting next to people at the same time. You're not even consuming the same content. You're not living in the same reality. You're not in the same paradigm. And whatever content does make it to people's screens is really shaped and formed by algorithmic forces we can't see and we don't understand, frankly. I think that the fracture that we're recognizing and the entertainment seeking is not so much from television, which maybe the model originated there, but again, there was that communal component to it. I think this device, this phone thing, is just a new frontier in a different way.
In Last Chance Live, all the contestants are people on death row, and yet you've made the villain the white man executive producer. I say I can't stand that man. I was like, oh, he could get it on site.
Well, part of why Eternity and Friends are the villains and they're not is because they are us, right? I say Eternity Price is all of us. Eternity Price is an every main character because Eternity and you or Eternity and me are really not that far apart. We are not on death row, literally, not because we are a different type of human being, but because the circumstances and systems and things that have impacted our life have just taken us a different place. We all have that capacity inside of us. As for the executive producer being the villain, I enjoy going into schools and talking to them about the premise of this book because the executive producer is an interesting place to start. And it illustrates how and why I wrote this as a book, to capture how to think, but not necessarily what to think. The executive producer doesn't think that he's a villain, and he's offering the only solution that is an alternative to the existing system of just linger and languish on death row until your sentence comes, right? And so if we recoil at the premise or think this show is horrific or whatever, all those students I talked to, they're like, I do the show. I don't want to sit on death row, you know? So, not to advocate for someone like the executive producer, nor would I advocate for a show like this. But to the extent that we don't like it or we think he's the villain, well, what's our solution? What are we going to do in its place? And is it actually something giving people like eternity an opportunity that they didn't otherwise have?
To me, his villainy is not that he's tried to come up with this new solution to limit the impact of capital punishment in the criminal legal system. His villainy to me is in his role as the executive producer. And maybe because I'm scarred from my time in television by some of my own experiences with executive producers. But that man, oh my God. Like his machinations and manipulations, which I'm sure came from your research in like the behind the scenes of how reality TV is made and how they make the sausage. You're showing us how they make the sausage in this fictional show. And I was just like, ooh, that man can get it.
He wants control, though. He wants the same thing that you want and I want and all of us want. We want to control our time. We want to control how much we invest our energy into a particular type of media or thought. We want to control what happens to us, right? We want to control whether I had to do the work of like following a long strain of thought or do I just get to the punchline. He wants control the same way the rest of us do. And it just looks different, you know, with him.
In addition to the executive producer and the other producers who are in the house, there's also a therapist who is supposed to be doing like group therapy with these kids. But whether she succeeds or not is not my question. My question is, in thinking about the role of mental health and what you said earlier about our brains not being fully formed until we're 25 years old, and thinking of like this movement toward restorative justice in abolitionist spaces, specifically like prison abolitionist spaces, what does restorative justice look like, in your opinion, for the most heinous of crimes?
Oh, do I love this question. Oh my goodness. Restorative justice is something that we have to be emotionally, and I say we, like the American people, we have to be emotionally prepared and committed to pursuing in order for it to work correctly. And a great example of restorative justice was the Charleston shooting at the Black church committed by Dylan Roof, right? So Dylan Roof was a 19-year-old shooter of 9 individuals at a Black church in Charleston.
Mother Emanuel AME, yes.
Yeah, the AME church. And the victims and those impacted by his horrific actions promptly forgave him. They did not advocate for his death, his punishment, things like that. And restorative justice wouldn't be thinking back to that forgiveness model of the car crash. It's not a magic wand. It's not, there's no consequences. It's not that there's no impact to the things you've done. But what it is we're going to look for a path forward and we're going to figure out how to apportion the cost. And restorative justice is probably going to require us, meaning those impacted and harmed, to absorb and pay some of the price of what someone else has done. So restorative justice for someone like Eternity, someone like her friends, it means reapportioning the cost. And if the cost is $20 million, if the cost is their life, how do we take on some of that burden to change the trajectory of what justice will look like? Do we change sentencing guidelines? Do we reinvest so that people who are in prison have access to different types of programs that are rehabilitative in nature, that can bring what they've done, not to a place of erasure, but to a place of restoration, right? And I think there's tremendous value in restorative justice and in the work and labor of it because it's transformative in nature.
That makes me then think of the famous quote, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Do you believe that?
Look, this is not the end. This is not the end. It's just not. This is not the end. I have a lot of thoughts about this that are probably far outside the scope of this podcast and beyond my book.
We've been outside the scope of the podcast and the book for a while.
But actually, it's a kind of a question that Last Chance Live explores, which is the American experiment worth continuing, right? If this is what America is, what are we holding on to and why? It's a question I think about a lot because we do have a decision point to make. If we think that the world of Last Chance Live is irreparably broken, if we think that there is just no way to transform the culture and the systems that this book takes place in and to make it something worth passing down to children, do we want to continue the country? Because countries end, empires end all the time. The only thing they have in common is that they end. And America's
At the
continuation
end.
in perpetuity, America's continuation in perpetuity is not some personal North Star for me. I love this country. I want the best for it. I don't presume to know whether America continuing indefinitely is the best thing to have happen. But these are questions that we need to ask. My hope is that Last Chance Live serves as a starting point, an entry point. If someone's like, hey, the dissolution of America is too big for me, but I'd like to enter on a smaller plane, right? Like, what about capital punishment? And I think that's actually a worthy place to start. And here's why. We sort of operate with this fiction that the world of Last Chance Live, the way we treat the marginalized, the underprivileged prisoners, people in need of restoration, people in need of assistance, people who have done tremendous evil, we think that the way we treat them can be siloed and separated into prison walls that keep them separate from us and keep whatever goes on separate from us. But I think we see in a lot of ways that are very evident and obvious and current in the news, how the way we conduct ourselves culturally and systemically and nationally inside prison walls leaks out into the public square. So if we are a culture of execution behind prison walls, we have become a culture of execution for the rest of us in the public square, right? We go out into our public spaces and we execute each other all the time. We execute each other on social media, figuratively or literally. We make it challenging to go to grocery stores and schools and whatnot. These evils are not easily contained and just applied to the least of us. So all of these big questions about America and where is it going and what should happen, I think that Last Chance Live can be an entry point to participating in that conversation and figuring out, what do I, as an individual citizen or as a resident or whatever your status is, what do I think should come next?
Much like citizens are having to decide now with the daily onslaught of news in America, you say the book for readers should begin at the end of the book and them being able to take some kind of action. What is it that you would want to see them do?
I want us to think. I want us to put down the screens and unplug from the ecosystem, the infotainment ecosystem, the political ecosystem that tells us what to think constantly. And I want us to really wrestle and engage with some of these big questions that we have to answer, because I think we increasingly recognize that life and this country is not going to let us just wander and amble along unaffected. I want us to think. I want us to reflect on those individual questions. What have I done? Where am I going? In what ways am I like Eternity Price, right? Like, Eternity's on death row, but we're all on death row too. We've all done wrong things, myself included, certainly. We're all headed to a grave. So the individual questions Eternity has to wrestle with, we should wrestle with too. And the societal questions, if I don't like what this looks like, if I don't like what I see, if I don't like the systems I'm living in, if we don't put away the entertainment and the distractions and think, it will not change. And then there really is no reflection of hope, right? That reflection of hope is in what we choose to do. And it begins with thinking critically about what we read.
All right. I want to move to a speed round and a game before I let you go for the afternoon. What is your favorite book?
I do love Parable of the Sower. I probably have like 105 favorites, but that's up there.
That's wildly specific. Who is your favorite author?
My favorite author would probably be Octavia Butler or Toni Morrison. I'm a big fan of Nikki Giovanni, though, and her work is just deeply impactful to me. So again, probably have 105, hard to pick.
So I know you don't watch a lot of TV, but what, if you had to pick one, would you say is your favorite TV show?
Girl, let me think here. I guess I could say Squid Game. I don't know if it's a favorite, but
Squid Game. It makes sense given the book that you've written. I don't want to see this happen, but I do want you to dream for a minute. But if Last Chance Live was made into a series or film, who would you want to play Eternity Price? I don't want to see it happen just because I feel like that defeats the purpose of the book.
Yeah.
I would love that for you, like get your checks, but I also feel like maybe we shouldn't on this one. But if it does,
I would love for casting to find an undiscovered talent who is working on their first project and introduce them to America and give them the opportunity to participate in a work like this that they wouldn't otherwise have access to, and to participate in an industry that they probably not have access to. That would be my dream. So someone nobody's heard of before doing their first TV series.
If money were no object, where would you go? What would you do? And where would you live?
I would go to Edisto Island. Edisto Island is a part of South Carolina, just outside of Charleston. It's where my family is from. My ancestors are from. My great grandmother's buried there. We are Gullah people. And I would go there because Edisto Island is central to the plot of book 2. And the ability to write this story and to do it on that soil, on that land, and connected to the people that came before me, people that I have some knowledge of, but I'm largely, like a lot of Black Americans, I'm largely disconnected from my heritage, going more than a few generations back. Having the ability to write the book on that land and soil would be very powerful for me. So that's where I would go. And I'm going to do it in a couple weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Name 3 things on your bucket list.
I do not believe in bucket lists, and I'll tell you why. And this is part of the questions of eternity price. I think if eternity is real, this entire earth is made for a purpose. And if we are eternal creatures in a way, right, which I think it's sort of indisputable that there's something materially different about us versus ants or flowers or whatnot, right? I think we can all sense that we were made for something more. I think we'll continue to exist in this earth and have access to the things that, if there's a mountain we want to see, if there's a beach in Hawaii you want to go to, it may not be in this version of our existence, but I think it's something that we'll be able to do if we want to do. So I am not a believer in bucket lists, but to be normal about the question, I could say I would really like to do a Mediterranean cruise.
What brings you joy?
Oh goodness, a lot of things bring me joy. Doing the mundane, I really am like deeply regulated by getting to be at home and eat the food I like to eat and having my routines and systems. I love my kids, my family, my husband. Writing and reading. It's hard to pick one thing because I just feel immensely privileged and very grateful that so much of my life is marked by things that I love and things that are life-giving and gratifying and soul-stirring, and I'm just very grateful and fortunate.
What brings you peace?
A belief in searching and clinging to what is true and orienting my life around it and the corollaries that follow from that. And what I mean by that is, if I believe that this world and the darkness in it, that this is not the end, and if I believe that everything can be made new and this too can be overcome, that's peace. And it's a peace maybe that is hard to understand at times, but it's confidence that there is reason for hope.
Amen. So our game is called Rewriting the Classics. Classic is however you define it. You can feel free to shade all those books, every man books that you had to read in high school. Here we go. Name 1 book you wished you would have written.
I'll go way back. I wish I had written the story of Mulan. That's what's coming to mind. I don't mean the Disney one. I mean like the original text. And I guess it's a hard one to pick out because that's not my culture, that's not my background. And there's a lot of nuances to the story and to the culture it's depicting that I would not be able to understand or do justice to. But it is a story of power and possibility that's just really impactful to me. And the kids and I, we read these original text with some frequency. And it resonates with me. I think another one would probably be The Wizard of Oz for a lot. I mean, the Wiz did a good job, but I might have liked to rewrite that one.
Name 1 book where you want to change the ending, and how would you do it?
I would change the ending of Sleeping Beauty, and not just to make it a more modern, feminist-minded princess saves herself, but I would have Maleficent really grapple with and reflect upon her evil and the source of it and why.
Name a book, my messy question, that you think is overrated or overtaught, and why.
I think Moby Dick was appropriately estimated upon its publication. Moby Dick did not get a lot of acclaim when it first came out. I think it was only way later in the life of the book, and maybe I think he was dead. I think he had died before it really took off. And I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing. It's a good book. I just, huh?
Never read it.
Yeah,
It gets a lot of shade on this podcast, so you are in
oh,
good
really?
company. Yes, you are in
Okay.
good company.
Okay. I feel like it's the acclaim and the laud has become disproportionate to the work.
Final question. When you're dead and gone and among the ancestors, what would you like someone to write about the legacy of words and work that you left behind?
I would want their authentic reflection of who I was or what my work was to be captured in their writing. And if it's something I would like, that's ideal. But if not, I would want them to be authentic. I'd want their words to be their own and not for their words to be mine.
Big thank you to Helena Haywoode Henry for being here today on Black and Published. You can follow Helena on the socials at Helena Haywoode Henry on Instagram and Threads. And Haywoode has an E at the end. Make sure you check out Last Chance Live, out now from Nancy Paulson Books. You can get a copy of the novel from Mahogany Books and get 10% off your first purchase using code BLACKPUB at checkout. That's BLKPUB. That's our show for the week. If you like this episode and want more Black and Published, head to our Instagram page. It's at Black and Published, and that's BLK and Published. There, I've posted a bonus clip from my interview with Helena about the danger of entertainment and the attention economy on the craft of writing. Make sure you check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll holler at y'all next week when our guest will be Christina Dotson, author of the novel Love You to Death.
This news story came on, and it was about this lady who was going around to weddings and just showing up and then taking stuff from the reception, the gift table, and then leave. And so I just thought that was hilarious. I mean, I thought that was the craziest idea for someone to have the audacity to show up to someone's wedding that they don't know, and then just to take stuff from the gift table and from the room where people have their purses and wallets. But I also thought it was really clever. It just kind of embedded itself into my brain.
That's next week on Black and Published. I'll talk to you then. Peace.
What's going on, family? This is Derek Young
and Ramonda Young,
owners of both Mahogany Books and the Mahogany Books Podcast Network.
We really want to thank each and every one of you for listening to this episode. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, drop us a review and rate us on whatever platform you download podcasts on.
We truly appreciate each and every one of you for supporting us and making us your go-to for Black books. And we look forward to connecting with you all sometime in the future.
Thank you again, fam. And always remember, Black books matter.